Very generous remarks. I hadn't intended to deal with that matter. I thought it was water under the bridge, but I'm very grateful for his comments. The second point is I think he did hit the nail on the head when he was talking about the undesirability of having too many judges who had retired having temporary warrants. In fact, at one stage the number was up to about 45 to 50, and I did become very concerned about that, and an important concomitant of the changes that we're talking about tonight will mean that as judges reach the age of 72, and if they're holding temporary warrants, they'll no longer receive warrants any further, and that will enable this rather or potentially unconstitutional and troubling practice to slowly diminish.
I call the Honourable Leanne Dalzell.
Chairman, I just want to take a brief call on this because I too was one that made some comments in relation to the matters being dealt with in the supplementary order paper. I am of the view that they should have been referred to a select committee, but I really appreciate the comments that my colleague, the Honourable David Parker, has made, and I accept that is something that occurred, and we will stand by those agreements. So, and I think that is important that we do so. But I actually wish that the minister, had referred a little bit about the decision that is being addressed in the other part of the SOP. So I do think the number of the judges is important, but I think that the Wikio decision is an important one, and I kind of want to get a sense of why the minister wants to deal with that in the context of this piece of legislation, rather than having it considered in a more in-depth way by the Select Committee through either another bill.
We're actually on new Part 1A.
Sorry, I thought that was in the
You're referring to Part 2, which is the SOPs under Part 2. So we're just debating at the moment new Part 1A.
Sorry, it was under the heading of Part 1A in the supplementary order paper. I must have... It reads Amendment to District Courts Act, and it's got 15A, 15B, and then 16A, and there's the salaries and allowances of judges. I thought that was precisely the point that... I thought that was being dealt with.
No, my understanding is that it's the only parts that we're looking at the moment under new Part 1A is 15A and 15B. Those are the only two debatable points.
So 16A is under a different part.
That's correct.
Sorry, I do apologise for that.
That's Part 2, yep.
It isn't clear the way the supplementary order paper is structured, and perhaps we should have a conversation about the way supplementary order papers are structured now, because the way that it is set out is that it shows Part 1A Amendment to District Courts Act, 15A, 15B, and then it moves on to 16A. There is no indication in the supplementary order paper, the way it's published, that would indicate that that was another part of the legislation. So I do apologise. I will talk about the number of judges then, because I think that it is important that as a matter of principle, and I'm not in any way resiling from the agreement that has been reached, but I think it is important that when we are considering issues like this, that there is an opportunity for others to have input, and the way they have input is through the Select Committee process. And the advantage of doing so is that there is a proper consideration of all of the issues involved. Now, I understand the point that the Minister makes with respect to retired judges, and I think that is useful, but I've been in this House long enough to know that I've heard the opposite argued by members of the Minister's party when we were in opposition before. That's how long I've been here, and the point has been made that these sorts of changes should not be made in a way that detracts from the outside input into the debate. So I think it is important as a general matter of principle that if these things are going to be addressed, then the proper way to do them, and it actually could have been done in this particular case, rather than seeking for this opportunity to be dealt with by the way that it has ultimately been resolved, but to actually table a supplementary order paper in the House and have it referred to the Select Committee. And that is a perfectly appropriate methodology for resolving these things. So I would recommend that process to the Minister, and I do apologise for not being a little bit more on the ball as far as the actual wording of the supplementary order paper was concerned.